Hello and welcome to our second chapter for this week, our sexual selves. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart as I taught the human sexuality classes at Garden City Community College for 20-some years. So we'll try not to get too long-winded. And as you know, I will talk over some slides that I want to put an emphasis on, and others we'll just pause, and you can either continue to pause it if you need more time to read them. We each have what we call a sexual script, and this teaches us how we are to act in certain sexual situations. So we have the who. Who are you to have sex with? So is that just your spouse, somebody of the opposite gender? When? Only when you're married or when you're in a committed relationship? What are you doing sexually? Where? Most people prefer the privacy of their own home, but there are the elevator stories. And why? And when I taught this on campus, I would always ask my students to give me 10 reasons why people had sex. And it was interesting because usually the first thing mentioned was pleasure, and it was usually by a male. But there are other reasons why: to have a baby, because you love someone, for stress release. So think about why you would have sex. So the who, when, what, where, and why is our sexual script. So this slide is the second on sexual identity. And you all, I think, understand the difference between heterosexuals and homosexuals, and of course bisexuals, but pansexual is a new word. And your book defines it as having the potential to be sexually attractive to various gender expressions, including those outside the gender-conforming binary. So that's kind of confusing, I think, so I went to Wikipedia, and I know that's probably not the best source, but I liked how it also talked about pansexuality, or sometimes it's referred to as omnisexuality, and it said it's a sexual, romantic, or emotional attraction towards people regardless of their sex or gender identity. So basically, a pansexual doesn't care if you are male or female. Many times our sexual identity is confused with gender identity, so combining these two chapters helps us understand that they are two very different things. This slide also talks about how it's not understood why some individuals develop a gay sexual identity. And we probably will talk more about homosexuality in a later chapter, but there's various theories on what makes one gay. So is it genetics? Is it hormone? Is it brain anatomy? Is it the psychodynamic, or is it learned? Basically, a sense of sexual identity often begins in one's childhood. Many gay people will tell you that at a very young age, they realized they were attracted to somebody of the same gender. They were expected to be attracted to somebody of the opposite gender, but they were certainly attracted to somebody of their own gender. This talks more about the sexual script. This is more on a cultural script. The 60s is truly known as a sexual revolution. We had so many changes, and it was an era where all of a sudden sexuality was almost for public display, kind of back in the Roman era again. Flashing, mooning, streaking. Maybe you have your own stories of what it was like for some of these experiences while you were growing up. It was the era of drugs, free love. The Vietnam War, of course, was going on during this time. So people would often have sex before the guy would go away to war, and if they produced a child beforehand, that was even better, because then the woman felt that that would assure that he would come back to her. Rock and roll, of course, Elvis, and on the early days, the Ed Sullivan Show, and they would not allow Elvis to be portrayed from the waist down because they thought his hip actions were so lewd. Boy, have things changed. In the 60s, they saw sex was more for pleasure. If it feels right, do it, looking out for yourself. We also have seen these cultural scripts change from the 80s to the 90s. Even as I talked about the 60s, we can compare that with what it's like today. Sexual politics pertains to the relationship between sexuality and power. And boy, do we often hear about sexuality in politics today. The public has heard more about same-sex marriages as same-sex politics have been used to push media coverage and encourage acceptance. So media is a key word here too. We often see things pushed due to the media. Okay, so I'm going to let you continue to look at the rest of these slides and read them on your own. Have a great day.